This weekend, I watched Ghosted with my girlfriend. Honestly, not that seriously, since neither of us had heard particularly good things about the movie. And in my experience, it was a very mixed bag. There were moments where I felt the film was genuinely fun and entertaining, but more often than that, there were moments that left me completely incredulous in a how is this real and released in the year of our Lord 2023 way. I plan on keeping this review super brief, so here are the good parts about the movie. It does have a few moments where the spark that got this concept off the ground shines. There are a few fish out of water, comedic leading sequences that really play to the film's and the actor's strengths and allow the audience to enjoy this high concept world. The hitman sequence specifically was the high point of the film for me. And honestly, that was about it. The film, for me, plays things far too straight for a romantic comedy. I often deride Marvel movies for their self-aware, insincere nature due to their constant lampshading and winking at the audience, but if this is the alternative, I am not sure which poison to pick. Absurd moments that would feel ridiculous even inside of a John Wick film where apparently everyone and their recently deceased grandmother are assassins just do not work on any level throughout Ghosted. The climax is just so ridiculous. The dial gets turned up to 11, and then it gets turned up to 12, and then they turn the dial up to 13, and then they just break the dial completely, and everyone turns out to be a hitman, and the imitation Seattle Needle starts to spin at Mach 3, and everyone gets glued to the walls like one of those rides at the boardwalk. Also, the plague of needle drops that has been brought on since the release of 2014's Guardians of the Galaxy has been an absolute scourge by action movies onto the movie-going public. They are very rarely good and often contrast completely with whatever scene they have been ruthlessly jammed into. Every song used in this movie seems to suck the life out of a scene it corresponds to rather than enhance it in any sort of fashion. And how is it that this movie takes whatever sort of fun chemistry Armas and Evans had in Knives Out and then convinces me that these two were not even in the same room together for more than 30 seconds? I mean, my girlfriend shared this theory or rumor with me as we started watching the film, and it was legitimately believable for about 5 minutes after the two supposedly met on screen. It took a noticeable fraction of the movie before the two were in the same shot together, in focus and in frame. A really, really weird and surprisingly shocking thing to notice about modern filmmaking is the apparent death of interesting blocking and unique shot selection. And speaking of the beginning of the movie, Ghosted does not at all do a good job of teaching you how to watch it. The first scene, or however many minutes, or even opening introductory sequences for all your characters are supposed to establish the world of your story. Everyone knows this, but not everyone knows what it means. Things like your tone, the kinds of characters we can expect to see, their reactions to the world around them as events unfold, even the style and inflection of lines of dialogue should be set up in the beginning of your movie. This is when the audience is most forgiving and most open to what it's about to see, where its perception can be molded for the experience that is to follow. This is when the audience is most receptive and most pliable. These first 10 minutes morph the entire experience of the film for the viewer. So when I listen to a very wooden, exposition-laden conversation between Armas's character and a disinterested therapist, I think, maybe this movie isn't that strong. And when that's followed up with Evan's character's introductory scene, with dialogue that seems even more hollow and artificial, with characters who feel entirely fake in an uninteresting way, I think, wow, maybe this movie is in fact weak. And this puts Ghosted into a cramped box. It forces it into an uphill battle that, quite frankly, it is not capable of winning, with the lead's perplexing lack of chemistry, a plotline that is at times as nonsensical as it is rehashed, and characters who exist more as tropes and plot devices than as human beings we could empathize with, who often do things and act in ways that make less than zero sense. Ghosted has far too much baggage to reclaim the lost ground it forfeits from the outset. Could it have coasted by with a stronger start? Maybe. I'll never know. I suspect a large majority of this film's problems are stemming from studio mandates and production demands rather than the faults of the filmmakers and the artists involved in the project. When I heard about the discussion the director had with the Apple team regarding the opening he intended to shoot versus the opening he was persuaded to shoot, it was really a crushing piece of information about the film. But it makes me have faith in the artists who tried to put something inspired out into the world, but were hampered just a bit. Maybe it just didn't coalesce this time, but I doubt it was any fault of one individual based on my limited perspective and knowledge of what has been going on behind the scenes. Ghosted has moments where its premise shines through and it gives very solid, enjoyable entertainment for the often abandoned rom-com genre. However, it strays too heavily into the spy world where it frankly feels out of its depth and underbaked. The bones of an engaging comedy are there, but they've been buried underneath far too many layers of mandates and meddling for any viewer to have their efforts of excavating them be rewarded. So overall, I give Ghosted a 1.5 out of 5. There's not much to love or really even to like, and there would need to be serious changes at a fundamental level for this movie to work for me. At least I didn't have to pay for Apple TV to watch it though, so I've got that going for me. I imagine my next review will be Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which very well may be my final foray into the MCU. So, until next time.